Welcome back to FastFreddyRC, and today we're going to start the build process of the Tamiya Manta Ray. I'm actually very excited about this one because it started everything. I mean, the Top Force and the Top Force Evo are all this chassis. I mean, obviously there's different elements to it, but this really was designed as a performance four-wheel drive kit. So and as I said before, I've never built a Top Force or a Top Force Evo yet. So to be able to start the build of the original DF01 is just so cool. Now, before I go into the manual, I will say get yourself a full set of ball bearings for this. You'll thank me for you'll thank me later for it, because over time things wear out. And if you replace everything with ball bearings, you're just ensuring that you're going to have a lot more years of worry-free driving. So definitely get yourself that full set of ball bearings. Now, to get into the manual itself, let's take a look here. I'll skip over all of this opening stuff. Let's get right to it. So obviously, step one, we're going to be working with the rear differential. Very cool. So there's a lot of gear work to be done here. And then in step two, we're going to be attaching the rear differential. And what's nice about this is the way they're designed. From what I understand, these here, you can pop off if you needed to work on a differential and then put them back in. So even when the kit is fully finished, it's easy to remove a differential and put it back again. So I think that's really, really cool. Then in step three, we're going to be attaching the pinion gear. And you can see here there is something to help with making sure that the placement of the pinion is correct. There's this bracket that we need to put on, and you can see that where the screws are going to have to go on that. Then in step four, we're going to attach the motor. So obviously that bracket's going to fit into this with a couple of screws and some washers. Very cool. Then in step five, we're going to be working on the spur gear. So we're back to working on some gears again. And you can see all of these plastic bearings and bushings. Well, this is where you should really replace them with the full ball bearings. Then in step six, we're going to be working on the rear gearbox and putting everything together. Very cool. I think I quite like the design of this. Step seven, the rear upper arms. So we'll be putting those together. Then in step eight, we're going to be attaching the rear damper stay. Very cool. And of course, adding our drive cups here. Then in step nine, we're going to be working on the rear lower arms and putting that all together. Then in step 10, we're going to be attaching the rear or the wheel axles. And again, we've got bearings that are going to go into there. And then in step 11, we're going to attach the rear lower arms. And of course, we're going to be putting our axles in place at this stage too. Very, very cool. Moving on. So in step 12, we're now going to be working on the front differential. And of course, we're also into bag B now. So we're going to put all that together. Then in step 13, we're going to attach the front differential and put that together. And of course, this one, the opening is going to be at the top rather than at the side. And then in step 14, we're going to be working on the counter gear. So again, a lot more gear work to come. And then in step 15, we're going to be working on the front gearbox. So you can see how all that's going to come together. Of course, you can see how the gear is placed in there. Very cool. And then in step 16, we're going to be working with the front damper stay. So we're going to put that together. And then in step 17, we're going to be working with those front uprights. And these are the red pieces, which I think is cool. I don't know why the rear remained black. You'd think they'd have red all around, but hey, I don't know what the decision for that was, but that's okay. Then in step 18, the front lower arms. So we're going to be putting all that together. Very cool. And then in step 19, attaching the front lower arms. And again, this is where this U bracket comes into play. because it'll attach the bottom, and then later on this basically will be secure. And of course we've got to put in our drive shafts again at this stage too. Then in step 20, rear dampers 1, well, we're going to be putting together our oil-filled shocks. Very cool. In step 21, we're going to be putting together or filling the dampers with the oil. And then in step 22, we're going to be attaching the springs. And remember what I mentioned in the unboxing, this piece here allows you to adjust the height. So they're telling you 5 millimeters, but later on, if you wanted it to be, you know, softer suspension, harder suspension, you can adjust that to your liking. Then in step 23, attaching the rear dampers, well, you can see how that's going to go. Then in step 24, we're now going to start working on the front dampers. So we're going to be putting them together. Step 25, we're going to be filling them with oil. And then step 26, we're going to do the same thing as we did before and put in these D8 pieces, which will allow you to adjust the shock. And then in 27, we're going to be attaching the front dampers. Very, very cool. So now we're into step 28, and this is the step that you'll want your battery charged and ready to go. Now in my case, I have a tool that's going to take us through this process a lot faster, which you'll see. And then once we've done step 28, we're going to move on to step 29 and work on the chassis. So you can see that we're going to start putting on our electronics trays, etc. This won't work for me because mine came with a 1060. That is for a Tamiya ESC, but don't worry about that. We'll figure out the placement as we go along here. Then in step 30, we've got the steering servo and of course our brackets that will be used to attach the servo into the chassis. So we're going to do that. Then in step 31, we're going to attach the RC equipment into the chassis. Very cool. And it looks like we're going to be cleaning up our wiring as well. Make sure that's out of the way of everything. Then in 32, we're going to be working on the steering linkage. So we're going to have to put that all together. And then in step 33, we're going to attach the steering linkage. Kind of an interesting design, the way this is done. Very, very cool. And then in 34, we're going to attach the rear gearbox to the chassis. Excellent. And then in 35, we're going to attach the front gearbox, which you can see that in attaching the front, we're also going to need to put in our bent coat hanger to make it all work. Very, very cool. And of course, it's showing you steering adjustment here. Interesting. So we're going to be doing that in step 35 as well. Then in step 36, we're going to be attaching the front bumper. Put that on. And then in step 37, we're going to be working on the wheels. So we'll put in those dish wheels into the tires. Very, very cool. I do love those dish wheels. And then 38, we're going to be attaching the wheels. And it looks like we've got this little rear bumper piece that's going to go on there as well. So we're going to do that in step 38, front and rear. Pretty much the same instructions for both front and rear. 39, we're going to be installing the battery pack. So that's showing you how that's all going to go. Fairly straightforward. And then in step 40, we're going to be cutting out the body. And this is going to be interesting because as much as the body itself is fairly small, it's going to be interesting painting it because it's sort of, you know, in terms of the shaping and everything else, you're going to want to make sure that you get the paint on there correctly and you don't have light spots and heavy spots, etc. But we'll get to that when we get to it. Then in 41, we're going to be cutting out the rear wing. And again, we're going to be getting to the point where in 42, we're going to be painting the body. And I intend on doing this box art or close to. So you can see we're going to need PS5 black and PS12 silver. It's interesting that it's painted, so we don't have a driver figure with this car. but it still says that it's Slippery Sam as the driver. You just can't see him. He's behind the black. Very, very cool. And then in step 43, we're going to do the markings. So that's when we're going to decal this up, which again, I think the box art decals look so good, and they'll look great with that silver paint as its backdrop. And then in step 44, we're going to attach the body to the chassis. Very, very cool. And if I'm not mistaken, that'll be it. So the only other thing is, I mean, they're showing you the option parts. Well, I've got the bearings, so we're set. But it also looks like there is a ball diff set that you can get for this. So you could replace the geared ones with the ball differentials. And there's also the universal drive shaft assembly that you can get for this. And then here, aluminum damper set. Okay, so there is that for the DFO1, DFO3 aluminum damper set. Interesting. So those can be used for this, and then it's just talking about different gear ratios, but very, very cool. So that is the manual overview for the Tamiya Manta Ray. And again, I will be building this in stages. As the videos are made, I'll put them out onto YouTube. The videos will come out once a week, but if you are a Fastlane Pass member, you will have early access to any of the videos that I've managed to get up on YouTube at any time. So be sure to hit that notification button, hit that subscribe button, and until next time, we'll see you in another video.